Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are from all parts of the world. I wanted to give a quick rundown of the price action today. On my previous video, I mentioned that I did not think that we could see a deep enough retracement to come into this buy-side imbalance on the daily for the dollar index. And I also said that I wanted to see if we could create the low of the week at this point. The last thing I mentioned was that I said we are permitted, well, personally I am permitting price to trade below this weekly sell side imbalance, this weekly CB. If none of this makes any sense, just watch the previous video before this one. I wanted to see us not close below this weekly CB, and so far we have not. We have actually only been weakened through it, and there's no body of a candlestick inside of it. And at the moment we've taken out buy side yet again, well, internal buy side liquidity from Friday's high. We wiped it and retraced back into the range. Looking forward, looking at tomorrow's price action, I would be paying attention to this area of this candlestick, essentially predicting an order block, and I'm actually assuming that we're going to have something similar to that on a lower time frame. So exactly as expected, we do have an order block on a lower time frame. We have this candlestick's opening price pulled to the right side. We have this fair value gap. I don't expect price to trade this low. We may not get this lower price, but if we do, this would be the discount that I'll be looking for to buy the dollar from, or in other words, to sell euro or pound. So I'd like to see if we can retrace back into this range or anywhere in this fair value gap tomorrow during London session to take the dollar higher. So today's price action, just like yesterday's price action, was actually very clean on euro, on pound, on everything actually. So personally, how I traded this was from the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, again, as I highlighted on my previous video, if you watched it, you would know what I'm talking about. I was looking at this candlestick's low at that point. I put it to the right and I wanted to see if we could do some sort of an immediate rebalance. I wanted to see if we could touch it and immediately reject away from it. Of course, I know it's a weekly chart. Of course, we're far from closing for the week, but if this is the case, then if we actually do close bearish, then we should be expecting even lower prices next week, next candlestick, right? Or the next few candlesticks. So I executed a 0.01 lot entry at that high with the assumption that if we do reject from it, I would get some sort of market structure shift to re-enter the trade. And in hindsight, I guess I could have entered a few times, but I just was not convinced enough that the move I was getting was the real thing. So let's go back to where we started dropping from, which was actually way up here. This is the purple line from the weekly chart. So as you can see, I actually highlighted this out with displaced lower. We closed below this swing low. I wanted to see if we could retrace to the fair value gap, because inside of this fair value gap is where the midnight price is. As you can see, pulling the midnight price to the right, we have the market structure shift. So I wanted to see if we could retrace back there and then fall off. We didn't do that. We just retraced into this other block, this tiny order block, but still a valid definition of one, just not the strongest probability one, because technically we have closed below this swing low. Technically we don't expect this BC or order block to support higher prices, so technically we have shifted the market structure, and any retracement we get should have been a confirmation for me to re-enter, but I didn't re-enter at this point, and I essentially just watched price melt away with 0.01 lot being a test entry, and we actually swept sell side at that point. Going to a daily chart, we can see that on Euro USD we finally swept the sell side liquidity. Of course, it just made us have relative equal lows now because it's still there, but I think, believe, and I would like to even say no, I know that we are coming for this weekly imbalance. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if we closed bearish, seems like we will be coming for this weekly buy side imbalance sitting in here. So going into tomorrow, we obviously displaced lower after sweeping buy side, and on a 4-hour chart we did get a market structure shift, taking this swing low right here. We can see this, the market structure has shifted, and we could possibly see a retracement into this fair value gap, this sell side imbalance, or this bigger one. If we actually retrace all the way back to this level, that's a deep premium for the day to take price lower, and of course take out these relative equal lows on a high time frame. So that's what I'm looking for on the euro, and that's what I traded today. I caught this but was not able to pyramid for more profits on that. Euro CAD, I mean USD CAD, same sort of structure. We retraced back into it, OTE entry, fair value gaps on lower time frames. In this case we got an inverse fair value gap, which to me was a BPR, a balanced price range. So I took this inverse, stretched it there, used that as the entry. But I set this alert for myself because I was away from the chart. So I set this alert on TradingView so I can get notified when we are approaching the inverse. So when I pull up my entries, you may realize that I didn't actually execute at this low. I executed as it was falling into it, because I was not on the chart, so I just took the trade as it was, looking for higher prices, looking for these highs to be swept and a little bit higher than that because of the dollar index. The indices, I was actually really happy with the price action for Nasdaq today. So on Nasdaq, as I also covered in the video, I said on the daily chart I was paying very close attention to this specific candlestick, this bullish candlestick right here. I wanted to see this body of it act as a strong order block, and this was a valid order block because it has a sell side imbalance sitting right next to it. So I really wanted to see this order block used to respect lower prices, to see lower prices. So I entered again a test entry, nothing heavy, nothing crazy, and it was meant to be a swing trade. So I put my stop loss at this mitigation block at this level, wanting to target these relative equal lows here on the left as my target as a swing trade, right? So price went there perfectly, respected it with nearly no drawdown. This line, this top gray line, is the order block. So what I meant by price action was really beautiful on Nasdaq today was on this price action. At this point we had a sweeping liquidity, and this was essentially a turtle soup to take out these people that would have probably sold from here and displaced lower, creating a market structure shift with a fair value gap, perfect fair value gap to enter for a sell. And at this point we were sitting above not only the midnight price, which is all the way down, but also above the 730 TSO, 730 true opening price, which was here. So I assumed this was all just a Judas to take price lower. So I executed a few Not as much as I would have wanted, because I was anticipating a possibility of 930 opening, pushing us higher, sweeping liquidity one more time. So I didn't enter as much as I would have liked to, but I didn't regret it either way. So we entered, displaced lower, and at this point I believe we got the silver bullet entry. Yeah, at this point. This was 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock was from here to here. So I was looking at this fair value gap residing here, inside here, and we came back into it at 10:15, again at 10:20, and I decided that this is probably gonna act as some sort of resistance to see lower prices. So I even set an alert to see if we can push one of the highs, but we didn't. So I re-entered, but I made a mistake at this point because I got tagged out. I accidentally basically took a partial. I was forced to take a partial, but I still had one runner from the top there, and yeah, this place trading lower. Same thing with the silver bullet for the PM session. Went higher and fell off. Same on markets on close. Markets on close was actually really nice because again I was away from my PC, so I was not able to capitalize on the move, but I was taking a close look at this other block on the 1 hour that I wanted to sell the Nasdaq from. So I was not on my chart to see this and take it lower, or pyramid. I'm not going to cry about the moves that I missed, and we'll look to see if we can get a better opportunity tomorrow during London session. Keeping in mind that tomorrow is PMI for 2 regions in Europe, and of course on GBP and USD. So PMI across the board. So I'm going to carefully watch how that plays out. I'm also keeping an eye out on this other block residing here on the 1 hour. We may use it as a support temporarily to run up and then maybe eventually fall off. So I'm just keeping an eye out on it. Very similar structure with S&P 500. I don't have to go through every single thing again, but we had an SMT divergence, of course, at the high. I labeled it as failure swing and SMT with the Nasdaq, because on the Nasdaq we swept this high. Here we didn't succeed at that, so this told me that we may be seeing lower prices from here. So yeah, I also highlighted the fair value gap, and this was where I had the bulk of my entries. This was where I set most of my orders, but we didn't obviously tag that. We displaced lower. I pyramided here, but at this point obviously I didn't enter what I wanted to enter there. And silver bullet hit. We had price run up, and yeah, fell off from there till PM session and market on close. So that was essentially the price action. Everything else is more or less the same. I did not trade the pound today, but more or less the same price action. And finally, this is the summary of the trades taken for the day. You can see the Euro USDs, and I took some partial on USD CAD. Going to the charts for Euro, we can see the trade executed from the top and exited at the low. USD CAD, on the other hand, same thing, the pullback that I was speaking of. The pullback I was talking about into the inverse fair value gap, displaced higher. I took some partials, and that's what these amounts are. So this is all there is. Of course, the Nasdaq on this side, I still have the higher one running from the H1. Same with the S&P 500. So there are still running trades from the ones I covered, and yeah, I might actually also be looking for a buy opportunity on USD, but this is probably gonna be during London session. So again, history showing you the trades for today. I am not going to update the P&L with this $51, but rather the entire history, which is sitting there at minus $9,396.21. And that's all for now. Good luck and good trading.